Pasture budgeting, I think, really performs a number of different services for a grazier. First and foremost, it's very difficult to manage what you don't monitor. So if you don't know how much grass you're growing every year, it's very difficult to know whether you're stocking it appropriately or not. It's also very difficult to track through time about whether your base of feed is depleting over the years or whether you're actually able to build more and more biomass. If a grazier knows their pasture budget but also has a good handle on the inventory of stock that they have, they're able to make a lot of decisions early in the year about whether they can have more stock, whether they need to sell more stock, when do they sell those stock, when can they take advantage of better markets, can they lease out some country, adjust out some country, increase their profitability a little bit more.
If we only did one piece of work in the year, doing that pasture budget is so important. It's exactly the same as having a money budget. You wouldn't go and buy another property unless you were sure you could cover those costs. You don't want to have cattle on your property unless you're sure you've got feed for them. When you start talking in the language of stock days per hectare, you are more taking into account what's edible, what's nutritious, what you want to leave as ground cover. So really that it becomes a vision in your head of when the paddock is finished, when you've still got a good healthy tussock base and you've harvested the leaf off it, you've got good ground cover, and that plant will be able to get some rain, absorb that water, and then just kick straight into growth rather than having to come from seed because the ground is bare, or really fight to come back because it's been chewed right down and the tussock base is sort of damaged. What we want our pasture to respond as quickly as possible when we get rainfall, and for our soil to absorb as much of that water as possible. And when you've got good ground cover at the end of the dry, both of those things can happen. It depends every year on how much rainfall you've had and how that rainfall has fallen and how much pasture that's produced. Some years this might produce 1,000, 1,200, 2,000 kilograms per hectare of feed. Some years it might produce 4,000 kilograms per hectare of feed. You have to measure that, you have to quantify that, and you have to relate it back to how many cattle you've got. If you do that early in the dry season, so at the end of the growing season when you've grown all the grass that you're going to for the year, and you can then say, well, I've got so many stock days and I've got so many stock, do they match? Do I have enough stock days of grass for the number of stock that I'm carrying? If I don't, and if I find that out in April or May, I've got months to rectify that. Before the market goes down, before everyone is forced to sell cattle, you can make some really good decisions about what you're going to market, how you're going to market them, or conversely, if you've got more grass than what you've got mouths for, what you're going to buy in, or it gives you a chance to adjust or purchase some more stock.
We've been told cash is king, grass is our cash. If we can have more grass available in the paddock, that's our cash flows. The more grass we have available, the less money we have to spend bringing other fodder and supplements onto our farm. Our margins are increasing because we're not bringing as much outside material in to feed animals when they've got it already and got it naturally. So it's great for the grass and landscape because it's got the moisture and the soil coverage, and it's good for the cattle health and it's good for our mental health.
Pasture budgeting is a fantastic tool. NQ Dry Tropics would recommend that pasture budgeting is done throughout the year. At a minimum, we'd love to see people do it in April and then again towards the end of the dry season, and taking into account as well what our climate forecasters are saying in terms of wet seasons, whether we're going to have an early one or whether it's going to be late, and then manage and adjust stocking rates accordingly. It's a book written by a producer for other producers, and it really explains Fran's understanding of how grazing management and how you manage grazing on a property can actually have beneficial outcomes for soils, for pastures, for livestock, and for your families. It explains a lot of really technical information in a language and in a way that any producer can pick up and understand. I think it's an invaluable resource that everybody should try and get a copy of.